911, what is your emergency?
Units respond code 3 to a 1050 on the highway. Vehicles are blocking multiple
We're en route
lanes
to the
of travel.
hospital. Patient is currently having
We've got a
cardiac
4-alarm
arrest and has
fire
been
here.
intubated.
Send
Protesters
additional
are
trucks.
outside of City Hall and they are not complying with our
Out
orders
on one.
to
Hold the
disperse.
air.
In a rapidly changing world for first responders where it seems that every day the rules and norms are changing, there is one voice you can count on to give you the latest in emergency news. That is Lifeline.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lifeline 911 Podcast with your host, Erica.
Hello.
I'm your co-host, Gary, and today we are going to be discussing P.E.D. policies in the workplace, personal electronic device policies. Mm-hmm. So, Erica, what are these personal electronic device policies that we speak of?
Well, for us, it's just what you would think of, your cell phone, your laptop, your, I don't know, what is it, your tablet, mm-hmm. whether it be a Mac or whatever, any of the gadgets and the gadgets, basically.
Even your, desktop computer,
Yeah, that's true, because if you have an admin computer like we do,
mm-hmm.
that is separate from the CAD system, that can be its own
thing.
Device, yeah.
Yeah, so the P.E.D. policies basically lay out kind of what is acceptable and what is unacceptable in terms of the use of, all of those devices you listed, and, what exactly is allowed to do while you're at your desk. Yeah. And those policies have certainly changed over the years that we've been here, mm-hmm. Because when, we started, when I started, they had cell phones.
Really? Wow. Actually, you know what? Honestly, that is, wow, that's kind of true, really. I mean, they had them, but they were the bricks.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But, when I started, you couldn't, have your cell phone even out on your desk.
Yeah,
I have been talked to about that before. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't text on it or call someone on it. Mm-hmm. You couldn't, definitely couldn't bring a laptop or something with you, or Mm-mm. games or cards or anything like that. You had to be here and be focused on the job you were doing for your entire shift.
Yeah.
And over the years, the policy has become much more lax with that.
I don't know if lax is right. I would say relaxed.
Okay. Well, laxed is how the kids say today.
Is that what they say?
Yeah, it's like Riz. It's short for charisma.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
It's become much more relaxed in terms of what you can do. So you generally can have your phone out now, your cell phone out. You can have a laptop or a tablet or something, mm-hmm. And have a movie going, things like that, and it's become more permissible to have these sort of devices and activities while you are at work.
Yes,
and the reasons for that vary. Obviously, employees are going to be a lot happier with that, but I would first kind of like to talk about the drawbacks of these systems. Now, I think you and I kind of have some daylight between us in terms of what we think are good policies and not.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine. That's one of the reasons we wanted to do an episode on this topic, was to kind of bring up that discussion so you guys out there in podcast land can listen to it and think about what kind of policies you'd want for your department, or if you need to make any changes to them.
Absolutely. Or even if it's not your department's or your agency's policies, what changes you might bring to your personal policies, the way that you govern yourself within that policy. Because, mm-hmm. Short of taking them away completely and totally, what's next? Mm-hmm. So what is, because we were talking about before, and I'm torn. I'm absolutely torn with the pros and the cons. I think the drawback is Your attention is divided.
Mm-hmm.
You are, if it's your phone, I mean, you pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down, but do you?
Yeah, especially if you're like a millennial or a Gen Z. Mm-hmm. I don't think we have any Gen Alphas yet.
No, not yet.
But they're coming.
They coming.
Yeah, they'll probably have microchips installed in their brains.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, can you put your phone down? Like, because I have seen people that, have been on their phones while they're like actively, doing 911 calls and actively dispatching on, calls that like are going out, and you can't switch task effectively that way.
Not that.
Especially
anyway.
if you need to use your logic and reasoning to try and understand and hear what maybe the caller's saying subtly, so they don't have to say it out loud necessarily to anybody who might be listening in to their phone call.
Very true.
And for me, it just also, it looks bad. Like, I'm kind of old school, kind of boomer at heart,
At heart, for sure.
I've always been one who's like, yeah, we should have a uniform here. We should have a more strict dress code. Don't worry though, out there, it always falls on deaf ears. So I don't think you need to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I've always been one that's like, we need to, tighten our laces a bit. And to me, like, when you come into work, you're there to work. So having, playing video games and watching movies and communicating with your friends on the TikToks and the Facebooks and the Instagrams.
Duh.
Yeah.
I love duh.
About the things that you want to do that weekend are distractions from the very real and deadly consequences that can happen if you're not paying attention. So if you think about it, would you want your kid's school bus driver to be chatting on their phone while they're driving your kids around? Would you want your doctor to be catching up on the latest, I guess not latest episode of House? That stopped like 15 years ago.
Okay, Gary.
But, no, you wouldn't. So why would you want yourself to be possibly distracted by that? And it's not necessarily that you would be distracted by it, but it's not a good look. I'm all about the looks,
Okay. So, devil's advocate, like
Sure.
we talked about. So, while I am I guess, I don't know if the surface is really the way to put it, but I feel myself, and you can see me shaking my head up and down in total agreement with all of that. But at the same time, I also know or believe that it's not healthy to require or even put an employee in a position to where they are sitting rod straight in their chair with absolutely nothing else to occupy their brain power but SOPs, because there is a such thing as SOP fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
There is, I'm telling you, but after a while they all start to run together. And where's the health in that? Mm-hmm. The health of the employee, the mental and emotional well-being, because while, yes, we are here to work, but that pesky state that we all share of being human also is relevant. So
yeah.
that's where I'm torn, because the supervisor in me is like, shut it all down, turn it all off, because this means now I don't have to have these kinds of conversations with you about why you haven't been paying attention and why the officer or the field responder is having to repeat themselves. I don't have to, have my manager send me this WAV file with you sounding half here and half not, and I can almost guess what you're doing that is causing you not to be completely present. So it's I'm torn.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely arguments for it, but like, I think that if you, like, just in my experience with it, I've seen people that have been on their phones, been chatting with their friends or family, and something happens outside of work and it upsets them to the point that they need to leave work. Whereas if they weren't on their phones, that would never have been a issue that they would run into.
Okay.
And then that's just an extreme example, but like how many times do you get distracted? Like you'll get a text message from like your spouse and they'll be like, "Can you pick up eggs on the way home?" And you're like, "Eggs are like $5 a carton now. I can't buy those. It's cheaper to buy cigarettes." And just like that's something that's on your mind. So
Yeah.
like, just these little distractions like that add up throughout the course of the day. And that's not even counting into effect the things that are really engaging, like playing a video game or something like first person shooter.
Which is my thing. I mean, and then I have no problem admitting I am biased. I am prejudiced against this activity.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me insane to watch employees be less than present because they are.
Yeah, I agree.
That drives me crazy. That makes me nuts.
Yeah, and it's a short trip.
Well, thank you for that. Very funny. But that seems to take more of their time and attention away from their duties than, say, a book.
Okay.
Why? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone out there you can email us and say, "Hi, wholly disagree, Erica, and here's why." I invite you, please do, because this is really not, the conversation isn't to change our policy, but to examine it and see how does everybody else feel about it. Mm-hmm. Because but back to the video game, it drives me absolutely batty. And I think that if I had my choice, whether it be fair or not fair, I don't care. I'll take the book.
Okay.
Over the video game, because the fellas cannot seem to pull themselves away from the frickin' video game. It makes me insane.
Yeah, and it is almost exclusively the men that play the video games at work.
Yeah. To the point of distraction.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just a little bit of distraction. Mm. They become, and otherwise very skilled individuals become about as effective as maybe someone who's been doing it in a very less longer than they have, or less long as they've been doing it. So to me, it's almost a shame because it takes away from the skill set to the point where you are now reduced to someone who's been, less than a year out?
I mean, it's kind of like fighting with one arm behind your back because like you've distracted yourself from paying full attention from whatever's going on. So, and a lot of times you have to hold a lot of pieces of information in your head at the same time in order to effectively, take emergency calls or dispatch on them.
True. But the benefit to having been doing it for a while is, say, if you're reading a book, take myself, for instance. I love to read. I enjoy reading. I can sit down at a radio and I won't get very far in the book, trust me, because of the discipline of looking up at the screen every so often and listening and paying attention or having my attention be split. But I'm better at it because I've been doing it much longer. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I would not be as engrossed in the book, I don't think, as you are in, say, like you say, first-person shooter video game, or TikTok, or the TikTok, or the Facebook, or I don't know. Yeah. But that's the whole point of the conversation is not we probably won't ever arrive at a solution. Yeah,
and a book is less it's less interactive because you're reading along with the story and you're imagining what's happening as well. But I don't know, people that read books, I tend to notice, are able to remember to look up at, like, if they're dispatching, look up at their screens and make sure nothing crazy has come into their sector.
Something hasn't changed so drastically.
Yeah, or if they're taking a 911 call, put the book down.
Right.
And so I don't know if that's just a different mindset you get into when you read a book as opposed to, like, when you like the really interactive things like playing a video game, like just getting fully engrossed in that and like to the exclusion of everything else. Because like me myself, I do enjoy playing video games and like I can Definitely lose track of time. I just today, I think I played one for like 6 hours, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, my whole day is
Wow.
gone." Yep. But that's all right. But yeah, you like it's really engrossing, and you can't you lose track of anything else that you're having to do, and
Yeah.
you can't keep all those plates spinning at the same time.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, like I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just old school, but looking out and seeing a bunch of people playing video games, like at their desk, like when the city's paying you money to like do a job, is very frustrating to me on just a visceral gut level.
Okay.
And I know it's an unpopular opinion, I know, but it's like we're here to work and do things, and yes, you know, you don't want to just sit there all day just studying like SOPs and such, but maybe study them a little bit, you know,
Agreed.
because there are lots of questions that we get every day that's like we're not just making up answers on 99.9% of this. It's like this is somewhere in policy, somewhere in SOP
Yeah.
of how to take this call or what to do in this situation.
Yeah. And we're responsible for knowing it. So where it's like, I don't think there is a policy per se for us as supervisors, but we know that. I think you put it like perfectly when you said it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It is definitely not a good look for us. I think but they're, okay, so I know that it's not against a policy for us. Mm-hmm. So what causes you not to, at any point, because you have that, it's just that integrity? Would
I'd
you
like to
say
think
that?
so, yeah.
It's just an integrity. You feel responsibility to the citizens
Well,
or to the city?
I guess for me, like I enjoyed demarcating my life a bit. Like I would not like working from home because my home is
Absolutely
like
not.
to me a sacred space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That I don't want to bring the filth of this job there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I, like keep those demons out. And being at work, like to me, it's part of a mindset. Like, so I often say like we should have uniforms. Part of that is because it puts you in a mindset of we're on a team, we're doing this together, and we're in it to win it.
And you're right about that. And I absolutely agree because at one point I did not wear a uniform, but as you probably noticed, more and more over the last
Yeah, you
year,
usually got your-
I have adopted a kind of uniform. I have certain shirts that I wear or sweatshirts or whatever. They have some sort of our agency's logo on it in some way because it gets me in the mindset of I am at work. And it puts me even further in the mindset of my role while I am at work. And I can feel it at times tugging at me. I know it may sound crazy, but mentally it tugs because you look down and you're like, oh, crap, I am at work. I am in this mindset. And so
It's always a terrible realization. Oh crap, I'm at work.
but I tell you what, and we're going to go back to this, but I had a supervisor many years ago say to me, she said, I dress the way that I do when I'm at work because I want someone to walk in who has never been here before, to look around the room and instantly be able to recognize who's in charge.
Right, yeah.
So that goes to the mindset of whether or not we as supervisors, even though we're allowed, how much time do we spend picking up a phone or looking at it or watching a movie? Obviously, we know it would not be a great look for us. And even though our charges are allowed, I would bet good money that if the tables were turned and they saw that in us, they would be disappointed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like for the uniform thing, once a year we have like hey, we're gonna get new shirts for everybody. You can order them. I always order like 5 shirts that are the exact same, and then I'll go out to Walmart and buy like 5 pairs of pants that are the exact same.
Yeah.
So, those usually last me a year without any incident. But yeah, it speaks to the mentality of that, and people like especially if you're like a supervisor, and they see you like watching a movie or playing a game or something, like they're just going to be like, well, why am I working so hard?
Yeah.
Even though you might just be taking 10 minutes out of your day to do that, to just kind of cool off. If they see you doing that, it's going to really affect their psyche. So like kind of going back to the demarcation, like if we had we have a break room, and next, during TC week, we're going to have an arcade room too.
Nice.
So, like going like off of the floor to kind of do those activities is one thing, but like when you come in to work, be ready to work is kind of how I feel about it. But those are sort of the drawbacks to it. Let's talk about the benefits of having a more relaxed P.E.D. policy.
Well, for one, you have a more relaxed, less stressed, floor, if you will. I mean, everybody at work is not, you know what? Let me back up. Let's take it for the cell phone.
Okay.
Because we have lots of people that are parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have people that are taking care of older parents.
Mm-hmm.
Or even siblings that are challenged in some way. And they feel safer not being where their family is, because they can at least look down and make sure that they haven't missed that phone call or that text message from the babysitter or the caregiver or the school even. Whereas I know people would say, well, it wasn't always that way. True, it wasn't. But should we take that luxury or that, should we take this away because it wasn't always that way? Should we go back to that? Should we take that peace of mind away from them? That's the benefit to me, because at one point in my life, I had an older parent that was ill, and it was important to me to be able to know that I had the peace of mind that if the phone bzzz next to me, while I might not be able to pick it up and answer it in that moment, I can turn it over and say, okay, I know who that is, and I know what that might be about. So in about 10 minutes, I can say to my supervisor, I need a minute. I need to go address this.
Yeah.
So
But
that's
I mean,
one.
Yeah. Not to go back to the drawbacks portion of it, but if you get that like message, like, God forbid, like, a message like mom fell or something, like in the middle of you taking a 911 call or dispatching like a high priority call, that's definitely going to distract you and make that much harder to get through that call you're on. Rather than if they had to call in to like the supervisor and say, hey, I need to talk to Erica for a personal reason. It's very important.
Yeah.
Then the supervisor, whenever you were done with the call, could go up and, say, hey, I need to pull you off the floor so you can make a call.
You're right. I can't argue that at all, because obviously before there were cell phones, that's exactly what happened. I've had those kinds of phone calls, and they had to come through our supervisors, and they had to make the choice whether or not to come and say something right then, right there, or wait until either, obviously, if you're taking 911 call, they're definitely not going to do that. But if you are in the middle of some sort of incident on the radio, they're definitely going to make the choice to wait. So I guess the immediate one is peace of mind.
Okay.
And we know that the employee, I guess another one would be that we have a workforce now that is, they don't even know what you're talking about if you say no phone. What?
Yeah.
What? Wait, what? And you'll say it again, and it'll be like, I see your mouth moving, and I hear what you are saying, but I cannot process it because I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. No cap, kids. Stand on biz. No phone. Those are words that kids use now, isn't it?
Do what now?
Exactly. Yeah. I looked up a whole list because I was talking to one of our younger employees, and she was telling me about these strange words that, the youngins use these days. So I printed off like 50 of them, and I tried to use them in a bit of conversation.
Don't ever do that again.
I have the riz to do it. So
what in the world? Okay.
Exactly. That is the exact response I gave to all those.
Alrighty then.
But yeah, so it it is a much different mentality than like kids today have, because like especially if you're under 30, you're going to most likely have maybe had a tablet when you were like a little baby to play on, had a cell phone from when you were like in middle school that never left your hand,
Right.
For your whole life.
Yeah.
And just an ever connected mode of being, connected to everything that's going on,
Yeah.
which is a whole other topic if that's good or bad. But in terms of the workplace, it's like loops. It's like your supervisor saying you can't use your arm. I need you to take your arm off.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So I know it sounds like we keep going back to the bad, but the truth is, in the environment that we're in, I think it would be safe to say that the reasons not to have it or to restrict it would far outweigh the reasons to keep it and keep it relaxed the way that it is. Because would you say it's human nature to be, is complacent the right word? To where I'm good enough at what I do that I can split my time and my attention and still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, hubris is, part of humanity. And then also, there's also the very natural, like, I want to get as much from something as I can with expending as little as I have to.
Yep.
And so that also kind of plays into part of it. But kind of going along with the benefits, like, I would say that it also, can keep people sharper because you're not always on edge. So if you're always in a state of heightened awareness, then you can't really get to a higher state. You just kind of burn out. It's like if you declare everything an emergency and then nothing's an emergency.
Absolutely.
And you need to be able to take breaks from that.
Yes.
My issue is just don't take breaks, while you're working. Take breaks during your break.
Right. Okay. So I think it comes down to if like anybody who's listening, if you work at a place like we do where that policy is similar to ours, where it is allowed, you can watch a movie or, you can have your cell phone and you can use your admin computer to do other things. And as long as it doesn't interfere with your job, they're fine, right? Because that's really the unwritten thing around here. As long as you don't allow it to distract you to the point where now I have to come and say something to you, then it's fine.
Yeah.
But we are expecting people to govern themselves. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to be the one to go ahead and say it. In my 20-plus year career, I know that I have been guilty of having my phone or I don't know if I really brought laptop, but tablet or even my admin where I'm watching some show and I've had to look up and go, wait, what has changed?
Yeah.
What happened? What did he say?
Changed.
What did he say? And I find myself hitting the playback. That time-honored, or not time, that old age crutch, the crutch that's there. And I call it a crutch. I don't care what anybody says. It's absolutely a crutch. Because, like, I'm telling on myself, you're watching the television or you're flipping through the tick and the talk.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've missed something. You just reach over and hit the thing.
Yeah.
And hit the playback. Never thinking that if you would just set down the other distraction long enough to pay as much attention as you should.
Right.
This would not be a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of treat it like someone's life depends on what you do, because it
kind of does.
Yeah,
I know.
And just ask yourself, could I live with myself if my inactions killed somebody because I was too busy watching, one of those 7-second videos on TikTok?
But you know what? That happens to other people.
I mean, other people are getting killed?
No, that what you're describing happens to other people. That doesn't happen to me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because one, I'm so good at what I do that for one, that would never happen because I'm that good.
Yeah.
I can read
Of
the
course, yeah.
newspaper and I can
You know.
do all of the, I can watch a whole movie
Mm-hmm.
and never miss anything. That doesn't happen to me. That happens
That's
in
somebody-
some
that's
other
somebody
place.
else's
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens somewhere else.
Except the time it doesn't. And then
Yeah.
then CNN comes in and they're like doing a whole episode on why this 911 center didn't do what they were supposed to do, and then your name is a national name.
Yeah, or that call becomes the basis for some other some course of what not to do.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been in those classes where it's like, and this happened in
So and so city,
yeah.
and they've got the name, they got everything.
Yeah, and then you listen to that audio file and you're like, yep, that person was asleep.
I don't care what they said.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a real challenge, I think, for both the departments to figure out a good PED policy.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot incumbent on the employees to
Absolutely.
understand what your limitation is of
Yeah.
your attention span. Because I've had employees that, like, she would like pop open her newspaper and she would read her newspaper her whole shift, but she never missed anything because she would always like look up and like see what was kind of going on.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure there's employees that can like, pause the movie they're watching as soon as a call comes in and focus entirely on that call, and then once
Yeah.
that's done, go back to the movie. And like if that's something you can do, and that's
Great.
yeah, and that's not violating your department's policies, great. But if you're somebody who really has a hard time of switching your focus, especially quickly,
Yep.
you may consider, even if your department allows it, personally making a choice not to do something that's going to be so engrossing. Maybe instead of, pulling out a laptop for a video game, you pull out a book.
Yeah.
Or maybe you, like we've got a lot of people that, I don't know if we have as many as we used to, but knitting used to be a big thing around here.
Yeah.
And they would make all kinds of things. I don't know anything about knitting or crocheting or anything, but
Crocheting?
like, yeah.
Crochet, Gary.
Yeah, but they would make all kinds of weird things, like booties for kids and things like that, and blankets. But yeah, if you're somebody that can do that, during the downtime to decompress, then yeah, that can help you refocus and recenter your energy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know yourself better than the department can.
Yep.
And you can make a better decision than any written policy could ever be.
Absolutely.
Because you can't encompass everything in a policy.
No.
And you're an adult if you're working at a communication center, I would imagine.
Yep.
So act like an adult and
Great.
know what your limitations are.
Know your limits. Yeah. It's called integrity. I've heard the definition of integrity as integrity is what you do when no one's looking, doing the right thing even though no one's looking. It's, even if you're never caught, not paying as much attention as you should. Are you still not paying as much attention as you should?
Yeah. And I mean, especially like, I think every department in the country has really had an issue with burnout these last 4 years.
Yeah.
Because it's just been a hellacious firestorm to survive, and sometimes. And hopefully we're all moving in a better direction with that. And as we kind of get back to normal,
Yeah.
we can
Thank gosh.
relax a little bit, but not lax.
Right. Oh my God.
I brought that around.
And I fell right into it. All righty then.
Well, I just had one more question for you before we conclude.
Okay.
What was the last book you read, and what would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh my God.
I'll go first. Mine was The House of Love and Death, which is a mystery novel that recently came out, and I'll give it a 7.5.
Honestly, I don't remember the last book I actually picked up because I've recently, probably in the last year, I've become a big audiobook person.
Okay, sure. We'll count those as being quote-unquote read.
I know, but of late, I have gone back through the entire series of C.S. Lewis.
Okay, very good.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, the whole thing. The Horse and His Boy. And actually, I went back and did what they would consider the prequel to that. And I can't. Right now, I'm drawing an absolute blank. It's The Magician's Nephew is the very first book.
I've never heard of that one.
It's the very first book. It's before the Wardrobe.
Okay.
Yep, and it's the Pevensies and everybody. So that is my all-time favorite ever since I was a kid, and I recently had an opportunity to go all the way to The Last Battle, which is all of the books.
Okay. The Magician's Nephew. All right.
Is the very first one.
Okay. 1 to 10?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, 10 and a half,
Okay.
12. Love them.
And fun fact for you, CS in C.S. Lewis stands for Clive Staples.
I did not know that.
Yeah, terrible name. Great author.
No
though.
wonder he did it.
Well, that's going to be all the time we have for you today on our podcast. We appreciate you for listening. From all of us at Lifeline 911 Podcast, I'm Gary.
I'm Erica.
And we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911 Podcast. If you have any questions about the topics we discussed today, or if there's something specific you'd like us to cover in a future episode, send us your questions at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. Stay safe out there. Until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.